Hello, we are Katrina and I setting off right now to write letters to ourselves to future us. And this was really powerful for me, an exercise that I did a couple of years ago that was recommended by Meredith Kelly. So if you're watching this, Mer, shout out to you. And it was powerful for a couple of reasons. One, because I am a lover of all things goal oriented and of growth. And two, because I'd actually done New Year's resolutions many times, and I don't think I've ever had so much success with this. And there were a couple of reasons. And after I posted the video of me opening the letter that I wrote to myself in 2015 to be opened by me in 2016 on New Year's Eve, I found that, hey, I've actually accomplished a lot more than I thought that I did. And I think that that is part of the point. So kind of wanted to give you a little bit the format. A lot of people had responded in that video or messaged me directly asking for the format of how I wrote the letter and what I put in it so that they could do it for themselves. So I figured I would do a workshop, and I know a lot of people said this time was a little off, so I'm recording it for you, and I'll send it to those of you who don't make it live. I don't always do the recordings, but I think that this is really powerful, and I know that I gave you this info a little last minute, so I want to make sure that you all can take advantage so that you can make 2019 a more productive and really just a deeper year for you for growth. So first off, I want to make sure that you understand that while a lot of people think that these soft skills, right, of managing your mind and creating vision and doing things that people like to skip over these steps because our society teaches us that the hard skills of knowing how to use Excel or something that you could put on your resume as a hard skill are more important. But I would argue, and I think a lot of people that are my clients would now agree, that the skill of managing your thoughts, the skill of being able to believe in a future in which you do not yet have a guarantee of it, is one of the most powerful, one of the most rewarding, and definitely one of the most financially rewarding skills that you can have, because until you can believe in your future and really see it and think it and believe it, we know through the model that I use, your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings drive your actions, and your actions produce your results. So you're not going to be able to produce a result unless you can first think that it is possible. So this is a really important step for anyone who wants to make 2019 a really big year. And so we'll talk about how you can go from just creating a goal to actually believing in that goal and your capability and bringing it to fruition. So what I did the first time I was creating my letter to myself was start out with a couple of sentences that really just brought me to the place I was in the day that I wrote it. So kind of what was I thinking and what was I feeling the day that I woke up? Who was I thinking about? What emotions did I feel? If I could feel like what happened the night before, what was I looking forward to? If you can summarize that in a couple of sentences. So for me, the first time that I did this, I was doing it after a particularly rough night. I had gotten into an argument. I was feeling not so great about my future, but yet I had this incredible team. I had this incredible support system and an incredible mentor and an incredible coach that believed in me and were leading by example of what was possible. And I just felt like there was a future that I knew somehow, even though my current situation wasn't reflecting it, I knew that there was something better for me waiting in the next year. And so I decided to explain where I was at and where my mindset was at and how I was feeling. And then after I did that, I wrote one solid sentence that was a belief or a mantra for what I felt was to come the next year. So I don't have that letter in front of me, but I believe it was something like, all of these this day and yesterday and the days of last year are only data points in the story that is my life. And I know that I have a lot of control. And this year I'm going to focus on what I can control, which is my thoughts, my feelings, my actions, and my results, and not focus on my circumstances, right? Which is the only thing that we can't control. So that sentence really resonates with me. It makes a lot of sense to me. And so you need to make sure that the sentence that you're writing down is something that when you read it out loud to yourself, you're going, that's what I'm gonna believe for my year. Then I went and wrote a couple of things, bullet pointed, that I was grateful for. So I think gratitude is just the foundation of anything good that we can believe in our lives. If we're in a place right now today where we don't want to be, focusing on that is only going to bring about more of that. It's going to attract it. What we think about, we bring about. So coming from a place of gratitude, there's always something to be grateful for. And if you can bullet point a couple of those things, I think that will start off your letter and get the energy and your frequency up so that you're feeling a little bit more inspired to come up with the things that you really want out of life. And you'll feel more in line with them and like they're more possible than if you're coming from a place of victimhood, or you're saying, this is what's going wrong with my life, or this is what I don't want. You don't want to put any of that, right? So you put the things that you're grateful for, and hopefully you'll get a little bit carried away with this. But if your letter ends up being 3 pages long, that's fine. Whatever it is to get down all of the things that you want to do, right? 2019, there's a lot of time in 365 days. And so don't limit yourself. This is a place to dream big. And in the place where I was saying what I was grateful for, I put a lot of numbers. I think that it was really helpful for me as I was reading it back the following year to say like, oh, wow, it's so cool that I put what my weekly income was for Beachbody, my 4th month into the business. I wrote down, I'm so grateful that this week I made X amount of dollars from a business that I had started from scratch. And then when I read it the following year, I was like, wow, like I was grateful for that amount. Now I make like triple that a week and I'm not as grateful. And it was like a wake up call to me to say, hey, there's always a place wherever you are, you're always looking to the future. You're always looking for more. You're always trying to grow, but you need to understand that you need to celebrate what you have now, which is coming from the place that you wanted to be in the past. And that's the whole point of this, right? If you cannot appreciate the journey, you're going to fall into that trap that you think that achieving something is going to give you the goals. No, appreciating and growing and then reflecting. Those are the moments that you feel the most connected to your purpose. So writing all the things that you're grateful for with some specificity and some numbers attached to it is really helpful. Obviously for money, that's an easy one to be specific about. Maybe you can be grateful that you have, I'm trying to think of something that's attached to a number that's not business related, because for me, those were a lot of the numbers that I put. Maybe I put that I was grateful that in my Kindle, I read 10 books that year. And so the next year, my goal was to read 12. And actually, when I read that letter back, I had read 13 books. That's not something you would typically sit down and celebrate unless you wrote it down and you set it as a goal. And I wanted to read them cover to cover because I typically tend to start books, get, halfway through them and then be like, on to the next one. This one's boring me. But for me, it was a big accomplishment and I actually did it. And I was able to feel good about that when I looked back on it. So after that step of writing down what you're grateful for, then the next thing that I did was write a couple of fears that I had and or hesitations or, worries essentially that I thought might have been holding me back this past year, that I don't want to have going into the future, that I need to overcome before I can actually get to these places. One of them was being that I was never financially going to get to a place where we would be able to afford to have kids and it was going to be too late. I wrote that down, right? I think being specific about your fears and being vulnerable and being honest about them is an important place. to be, but then you need to go ahead, write them down, and then write the opposite, write how you would feel if the opposite were to come true. So if you had, if like I had written that down and then I said, you know, my parents, under it, I wrote, my parents had me when they had no money. And it turned out, right? And so when you are able to see what's possible, we tend to think about what's possible in the negative because it's just our brain is hardwired to look for problems and to keep us safe. And so therefore, we need to say, okay, brain, like that's a possibility, but all we need to do to make the other thing possible is to say, is this also possible? This other positive alternative. And when you don't say, like, when you rationalize with your brain, like, okay, that's possible, I'm giving you that, but is this other thing also possible? Your brain has to say, because it know it, it's possible. And you can be like, I know, maybe it's not likely, maybe it's whatever, but it's possible, and that's all I need. And when it's possible, then your brain can get on board. So we kind of need to trick our brains, because they have been hardwired to do a certain thing for us, that is no longer serving us, right? So this might be a little high level or a little advanced for those of you who don't work with me in happening sessions or one-on-one, but I think that if you want to learn a little bit more about that, you should definitely join happening sessions. We talk a lot about this and break it down in every growth category of life. But I think that for our purposes right now, you need to understand that this step cannot be skipped. You need to figure out what obstacles are going to potentially hold you back, write them down, and then kind of disprove them. 1 second, need to take a sip of water. Okay, so then once you've done that, then is to really just get down to the goals part of it, which is I think why a lot of you came here, which is, what do you want out of this year? And how do you even begin to start to figure out what's the most important or what's worthy of being put down on paper? I think for me, I like to start with going through the growth categories. So I'll list them right now, but you can definitely go to what'shappyning.com and click on growth categories to see them and to be to jog your memory as you are just looking for categories, so that your whole list doesn't turn into like all goals that have to do with business or all goals that have to do with you know, your family or whatever it is, so that it feels a little bit more all-encompassing. So then you can go through and just start to really do a brain dump. And if you want your list to be, your letters to be really pretty, do this on a separate piece of paper and just write down all the things that come to you. So I would have a separate list that would say maybe what I want to do, what I want to have, what I want to be. And what I want to be is a great place to start. It would be maybe writing down some things that, some adjectives of like the person that you want to be described as from this next year. And that can be broken down. So for example, I want to be more in line with my highest self. That's something that I say a lot. So who is my highest self? My highest self is someone who is really honest. And I think that it's easy for us to justify ways to, you know, tell white lies or to avoid situations that are uncomfortable. But my highest self does things that are difficult, and doesn't just always take the easy way out. So I want to be more in line with that person. I want to be more energetic. And in a past life, I would have said that, okay, in order to be more energetic, that means you need to get more sleep. But the case is, especially when you become a parent or when you're in a certain phase of life, sometimes you just don't get as much sleep as you want. And therefore, what am I going to do? Am I just going to say, sorry, out of my 365 days, the days that I don't get 8+ hours of sleep, I'm just not going to be my highest self. That's not who I want to be. And when you get really specific about who it is that you want to be, I want to be the type of person that generates energy, the type of person that doesn't make excuses for myself and doesn't use that as the foundation for why I put my head on my pillow and I say I'm proud of who I am, yes or no, or who I was today. Was I better today a little bit than I was yesterday? Are you asking the right questions about who you want to be? So who you want to be, that's a really important category of your wants. And then maybe once you have those down, you say, okay, the person that I want to be is more energetic. Okay, so what does that look like in a measurable sense? I want to be someone who works out in the morning, because even if I didn't get enough sleep, if I'm an energetic person, I say I'm going to commit to my workouts in the morning, no matter what, no matter if Calvin woke up at 3:57, which he did last night. God knows why, 2-year molars maybe. But I really want to commit to doing that, because when I know that when I do hard things, I feel so much better about the person that I am. And that is the point of this letter to myself, but it needs to be measurable. So then there are other fun things that you can write down, obviously, in the growth categories, something like love and sex, money and business, a family and friends, home and organization. These are just categories for you to kind of brainstorm on. Community and giving back, spirituality, hobbies and habits. So if you're going into these things, then you can break down your other goals. So obviously, maybe travel would be in the area of hobbies or habits. Maybe I would put some things about my home. I want to be better about donating clothes quarterly. Whatever your goals are, they can be big, they can be small. Try not to compare them to anyone else. If you want to do this with a partner, I think it's really fun. Doing it with your significant other can be really helpful to keep you on track, but accountability is so key. And I'll talk about that at the very end. So other wants that I put last year was I wanted to teach Calvin to be bilingual. So yesterday morning when Calvin woke up super early, he woke up and he was like sleeping in my bed, and I'm kind of trying to be quiet, like shh. And he was going, uno, dos, tres, salta, which means 1, 2, 3, jump. And I was like, I'm getting there. You know, he is thinking in Spanish. So really cool. That is measurable in that way. So figure out what that looks like to you, what places you want to go to. And then if you're saying like, I want to go to Toronto next year, okay, but you don't have it booked, at how much money will it cost you to go to Toronto? You reverse engineer that. You say, at what point do I want to buy my flight? By how much money do I need to save per month in order to make that money to buy the flight, etc., etc. So make sure that these things are specific and then measurable. I know many of you may have heard of SMART goals, the acronym SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, timely, and R is realistic, and then timely. So figuring out how you can look at this list at the end of your year next year and say like, okay, yes, I know for sure without a doubt, or someone else could look at it and say, you did this or you didn't do this. And then at the end of it, I really want you to just get a little bit more creative, and I want you to write a kind of like a pep talk to yourself, a couple of sentences that really sum up how proud you are of yourself. So imagine you are writing this letter from your past self to your future self, congratulating yourself on having accomplished all of these things that you want to accomplish. It's a weird concept, and you're going to have to feel a little bit silly when you're doing it. But I wrote, Jess, you are a crusher of goals and a bright light and an inspiration. You were born to affect change and to help people see their greatest potential in themselves. And that includes friends, family, and strangers. Are you crying yet? And it was funny because I was reading it and I was crying, and I was like, oh God, I know myself way too well. And I encourage you to kind of just end with, I'm so proud of you, and the following year is going to be even better. But right now, all your job is to sit back and appreciate all you've done up until this moment, and just know that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, no matter whether every single thing on this list was checked off or whether this list just helped you you realize some things that you wanted, and then life helped you along the way realize other things that you wanted along the way. So this isn't a list to make you feel guilty if you don't accomplish one thing or what your percentage of accomplishment is. No, it's to help you become more intentional with your days, and to be more intentional with your thoughts about what is possible for you and what you want. So I hope that this workshop was helpful to you guys. For anyone who's watching the recording, thanks so much. I would love to get feedback from how you did with writing your list, and if you need any further help, or if you have a question with how to kind of like wrap it up and tie it all together, I would love to chit chat. But like I said, these are the types of things that we work on in my group coaching program, What's Happening Sessions. And it is something that is kind of like if you've ever wanted to work with a life coach, but you're not ready to take that investment, because it's definitely an investment to work one-on-one with a life coach. This is a community that is super, super, super affordable, where you can really have the experience of working with a life coach, and then also have the accountability to make sure that you don't just write this and turn it into a piece of paper. Half of the reason why I was able to accomplish so much was because I worked with a team and with a coach and with a mentor. And accountability is the ultimate last step to making sure that you actually take the action, and that when you take action and inevitably fail or things don't go exactly as planned, you have a sounding board and a place to fall back on to pick you back up and to keep going and to refocus you back on your goals. So I hope that this is really helpful today. And I know, Katrina, you're just on. I don't know if you have any questions. If you do, I know I was speaking like a mile a minute here. You can pop in there and let me know in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. Otherwise, I will see everyone soon. And if you want information about joining Happyning sessions, please, you can go to what'shappyning.com. That's whatshappyning.com/work with Jess. And you will be able to sign up right there. Starting in January, we're going to be talking about the what the normal is and what we have thought of as normal leading up until now, and kind of figuring out what we want our new normal to be, and kind of raising the level of our thoughts and our feelings and our actions about our lives, so that it matches the person, our highest selves, and the person we want to be, to accomplish and to really achieve these goals that we're setting that are bigger than ourselves. If you want something new, if you want something more than what you have right now, you need to become someone greater and someone more in order to reach that. So I implore you all to continue this letter and finish it to completion, and keep it in a safe place for next year. And thank you so much for taking the time and stopping on today. Cheers.